Everyone, let's welcome Jordan Parker to Dragon Talk. Welcome!
Yay!
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Jordan, you're my favorite.
Oh my God.
Why are you so friendly? That's really a question we got about you. True story.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jordan.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Shelly and Greg. How's it going?
Good, good.
Wonderful.
We are excited to talk to you about so many fun things, but, you know, people may know you from, your Twitch channel and Lionhead Gaming. You're doing a D&D game called Heroes of Thylia, as well as Song of Rapture. That sounds really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, one of the fun things that we always like to ask people is like, what was your start playing Dungeons & Dragons? What was your origin story of getting into the game? And talk a little bit about that experience.
My origin story for D&D is a little controversial, if to be honest.
Yeah.
No worries.
Let's
That's
jump
important
right in.
because I know that's a big issue for many people in the community, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do here with Dragon Talk is to make sure that we acknowledge and hear everybody. So yeah, Tell us what you got.
I came in, I want to say it was like 2011 with 4th edition D&D,
Okay.
which is where usually the controversy comes from. And I loved that edition. I loved it so very, very much. I am a steadfast and valiant defender of the merits of that edition, and I will die on that hill.
Nice. Well, I mean, sometimes
There was
always
a
the
lot to
first
love,
one
yeah.
is the most beloved version. What was it about 4th edition that sucked you in?
Oh, geez. I mean, there's I think a universal truth to tabletop role-playing games in the analogy that it's pretend with rules. And so, just that initial notion, the ability to go have these crazy imaginative adventures that had, rules backing them that you could look to and determine, yes, you did beat the dragon because the rules said you did. And good job. That was your adventure. Did you have fun? Yes, I did. I enjoyed playing my paladin very much. It's all the same sort of energies that the hobby gives us. People describe their adventures not from a really like a storytelling perspective, but more like they were there. They describe them from the first person. I slew Thorin the red dragon. Like, well, no, I mean, you didn't. You were at the table rolling dice with your friends, having soda and pizza and stuff. No, I was there. I could feel the fire of the dragon's breath. And, that enraptured me like I believe it is so many others. And that is something that was pervasive even in 4th edition.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I remember I also really liked 4th edition. I learned on 3.5. So 4th edition was just a lot easier, for lack of a better word. It was like, I can actually create a character like by myself. Not like it doesn't take me days and days. But there was a lot to love about 4th edition too. But so I assume you had an interest in gaming before you started to play D&D.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was playing, video games and things like that since, God said let, basically. Playing, taking the little plasticky gun from my dad and demanding that it was my turn to play Duck Hunt.
Nice.
And playing some early RPGs like Final Fantasy and things like that, and a big fan of the Ace Combat series. Lots of gaming in my life. Also board games. Love me some board games. I have a whole closet full of them. All that sort of stuff.
So you mentioned a paladin. Was that your first character that you played?
My very, very, very first D&D character, very imaginatively named Fiona Ravenwater, a paladin of the Raven Queen, who wanted nothing more than to be her god's right hand, and eventually achieved just that, thanks to epic destinies.
That's awesome. My daughter's name is Fiona. I think she would Love to
Even a
hear about.
Ravenclaw.
Yeah, exactly. Love to hear about the exploits of this character.
Yes.
Fun time.
It would be awesome to have a name in real life that people use for their D&D characters. Probably not that many D&D characters named Shelly.
only
Nope,
turtles.
Ah!
Oh,
We're on the same wavelength.
You
we're on
know,
the same wavelength.
you're right. There's got to be some turtles named Shelly out
Yeah,
there.
right. Shelley
Dad
Michelangelo.
energy. That's what that is.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I love Fourth too. Going back to that, like, and your love of board gaming, and it sounds like a lot of strategy / wargaming type stuff definitely feeds into that
Grew up on
system.
RCSs.
But yeah, you're streaming now. What can you tell me a little about your channel and what that's all about?
Lionhead Gaming, oddly enough, started out as me trying to basically share my love of video gaming with Twitch, and it was a late entry into a very small, well-populated pond to start with, and video games don't really bring out the same, as my wife would call it, charisma that I do have when I'm doing D&D things. I get very focused and sort of occupied with the game, and it wasn't a super, good thing to watch, to be completely honest. But I had also recently started playing D&D online via Roll20, and she noticed just how much more energetic and enthralled and passionate I was, portraying my dragonborn wizard Aegon von Braun. And she had the brilliant idea of suggesting, why don't you just stream D&D instead of Overwatch? And I was like, I guess I could stream D&D. I don't see why not. I have the stuff. Cool. Let me ask my group if they'd be fine with that. They were fine with that. And one thing led to another, and I streamed that original game, Order of the Light, and then that led into The Expanse, which was a really fun show. It started out as like a weird sort of D&D Western that, of course, grew into a big, fantastical, dragon-stopping adventure, and going from level 3 to 20. It was crazy.
Wow.
That was a really fun campaign, and then we started Song of Rapture, and with Song of Rapture, I finally managed to rope the wife into playing D&D.
Wow!
Because she spent her adolescence like doing like forum role playing and stuff, so she was already like kind of there. But I was just like, like those situations where you're talking about how cool your princess character is and how cool somebody else's princess character is, but you guys are having like a squabble and you don't know who would win in your little princess fight. Come play this game where we can find out who wins in the princess fight.
All you gotta do is roll the die and you'll find out who the best princess is.
Exactly.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I managed to rope her in finally. So she's enjoying the heck out of the hobby now. And she's, been playing in every campaign that we've done since Kingdoms of the South, our Warfare campaign, which has just recently moved off the channel. Song of Rapture. She also plays in Heroes of Thylia, my game that I run. So it's been a fun journey over these last 4 years, I think now.
4 years, huh?
Yeah, and you owe it all to her as far as that great idea,
100%.
right?
100%.
What about streaming D&D?
D&D, yeah. All of it goes to her. She is, she'll describe me as her rock, but like it's none of this would be possible without her immense moral and just support, just constantly. It's good to have a really good, partner.
Heck yeah.
Especially during this time.
Especially over this last year. You really do find out who the good ones truly are when you are forced to spend 365 days with them.
Exactly.
And only them.
But that's such a. I love that you were able to kind of take the forum role playing kind of expertise that she had and be like, all right, that's not that dissimilar from what Dungeons and Dragons is all about. And I see that in my own wife, who does some performance and acting, and grok's that side of it. It's the fantasy part that she's still not doesn't have that like fandom of watching the Lord of the Rings movies and enjoying them as much as I did and all that stuff. But
I just sat her down to watch the extended editions like 2 years ago, and I was like, all right, cool. Now you've got your fantasy to go with like your decade and a half of theater, musical, stuff that she already was bringing to the table. So now you can sing and shoot a bow.
You have the fantasy. What is what did you say? The reform role? I don't know what that is. What you said she was dabbling in.
Forum role playing. So like playing. Yeah.
Yeah, like like sort of like play by post, if you've heard about that for TTRPGs, right? But instead of playing a game, you're just like posting what your character is doing, collaborative storytelling.
Forums, like forum. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that seems like a natural-ish transition to D&D. Was there something about the setting in Song of Rapture or the story that also was drawing her in? I'm just curious because I know a lot of people that I think would really love D&D, but like Greg was saying, like they're not fantasy fans, or they don't think they are, but they would be such good role players and such good storytellers. How do I move them in?
I mean, with Song of Rapture, I don't know. It was kind of like a process, right? Because to get that game off the ground, I basically bribed the DM, who was a player in all of our other games, Omen, whose name is also Jordan, so we call him Omen, to run that game, because I was just like, hey, here you go, buddy, happy birthday. It's the Monster Manual on Roll20, and here it's Volos. Hey, buddy, sure you don't want to put together a homebrew campaign? And he decided, thankfully, to put something together that is, I wouldn't say like newbie friendly or like beginner friendly, but that's definitely like the opening feel that we had was like, hey, if Mel's going to be joining us, let's make sure that we're aiming for not having everything be crazy difficult where you need to be super experienced or anything like that to know what's going on. You're not dealing with mind flares at level 5. And just have a really cool, unique concept, which is dealing with basically sort of an interplanar adventure, dealing with the fact that with that game right now, we're sort of finding out that the veil that separates all the different planes has been thinning over the last few years, and we're dealing with planar incursions in different forms and fashions. Right now, we're in the Feywild trying to get Mel's character's brother to not have to marry Princess Titania, Queen of the Summer Court. So we're basically crashing a wedding right now in the Feywild. So that's, so having adventures like that, but then, also having adventures where you go to an island that's been awash with energies from the Shadowfell that have turned everyone into undead and putting a stop to that, so like dealing with what happens when your neighbors keep coming over uninvited, basically, is a good way to summarize that, except, your neighbors are elemental princes and, giant Feywild ladies and horrible undead monstrosities, and God forbid the Far Realm.
Eesh, yeah, that seems fun.
Yeah.
It's we're pretty deep in that campaign now. I think we're coming on to, I want to say, our 120th episode here soon. It's been going for quite some time on Thursdays.
That's great. And I mean, it feels like you go back and forth between a player and a DM pretty often.
Indeed.
How's that? Because, usually when we talk to people, they're usually like, hey, I'm mostly DM, or I, mostly play and dabble. But it seems like you've got a pretty even split there.
Yeah, we have a relatively large-ish, consistent play group of around 7-8 people now, maybe 9 on a good day. And and most of us have some DM vertebra in our spine, some DM bones in there, where we like to take a crack at it. So like Brendan who's a player in all the other games, was the runner of the Expanse campaign. And so with his 3 to 20 game out of the way, he's taking a break right now and just enjoying playing. And, then I was like, all right, well, let me step up to the plate. And John stepped up to the plate to run his game. And then we also play in each other's games. So it's just it's a nice sort of crisscross applesauce kind of group. Not everyone's DMing, but we'll get them eventually.
Greg,
we're trying to get one to DM a Cyberpunk game right now. We're just like slowly but surely sending him, memes and different homebrew guides and here's our cool robot characters. Come on, Peter, run the game. We believe in you. We love you.
You do have a pattern, I'm noticing. Like, here's a monster man.
Yeah, here. Let me give you some stuff. Read it.
Be wary of the gifts. If Jordan starts giving you gifts, be wary of what that truly means. But Greg, you're kind of I feel like you also balance between being a player and a dungeon master.
I do, and actually, I've been my needle has been against the dungeon mastering side for a lot recently, and I've been getting the hankering to want to play more because of that. Like I do like a balance.
Yeah. Is it hard when you're players to turn off the dungeon master in you and just let somebody else lead that story?
What do you think, Jordan?
I think this is going to sound like kind of a cop-out answer, but I think honestly it depends on the person and their personality, how they handle things, how they handle, DM choosing a story to go in a certain direction or dropping certain rules and things like that. I think it all comes down to communication in terms of effectively managing that relationship as a DM player, right? We're like, yeah, I run games, but this is your game. So what are the rules of your game? How are we going to solve this problem? And that, just having respect for each other, being a close group of friends. We've been playing together, all of us now for 4 years or so, so we have a good understanding of like, hey, if Brendan says something doesn't make sense to him as a player, right? Because it's in terms of a DM ruling call or something, we know he's not trying to be disrespectful or anything. He just wants clarification. He wants to, hash it out and figure out how we should proceed going forward. Same goes for the rest of us.
Yeah. Have you noticed this trend? Because I see this in myself, and I see it in a couple other players that I know that also dungeon master, where the ex dungeon master, as a player, ends up being the instigator kind of player. The one that's moving the plot forward.
Like instigator in a good way?
In a good way, right? Like,
okay.
I mean, because everybody's had that experience where there's, a table of players being like, well, maybe we should do this, or maybe we should do this, or maybe we should do this. And then there's the players like, we're doing this. And then everybody has to react to that. And that, to me, that you need that type of character to kind of, again, push the plot forward. I usually end up being that player. And I think other DMs also just kind of recognize that, like, this player conversation is meta. It's not in character. It's not moving the plot forward at all. So let's just make the reactions happen. Have you found that happens a lot for the people who balance both dungeon mastering and playing?
I would say yes, but I would also say that it also just comes from being sort of an active or sort of spotlight player. You might just decide to take the initiative and make that call, right? Mel's character, Persephone, will sometimes just decide that we're going to do a thing a certain way. And she hasn't DM'd as of yet. Her turn is coming. But
beware.
I don't care if we have to play small animals to get her to do it. We'll do it.
Are we talking about your wife? Is Mel your wife?
Yes, that's Mel's my wife.
That's awesome.
I'd play that game.
There's going to be a Redwall game coming pretty soon.
Redwall, Humblewood, baby. Yeah, so it's definitely something I think you'll see from DMs, because they'll recognize, like, hey, this conversation's really circular. It's not in character, like you said. Let's just pick something and see what happens, right? Let's move it forward. But I think it also just comes from just having that sort of active player mindset will also get you there after a certain point.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Or maybe she just has the makings of a really good DM.
I think that's really what
I know. She's already moving that plot forward.
I'm gonna send Mel a Dungeon Master's guide. I think that's the way to do it.
Jordan's job. You got to start. Here's
I'll take the
a DM screen. I thought you'd look so nice behind the screen.
Oh, right. It matches your aesthetic. It's got little fuzzy furry animals all over it.
Oh my God.
Oh,
She'd love that.
Oh, I like
that
it.
would be awesome.
Oh, man. So tell me a little bit. I mean, because you've got all these different games. They have really evocative slug lines. Honestly, the way you describe them, like, ooh, I want to know more. But you mentioned one that was your wargaming campaign,
Yes.
Battle in the South or something like that?
Kingdoms of the South.
Kingdoms of the South. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that, because I have, like you, I'm a board gamer and a strategy gamer, and so I like that aspect of D&D, of like elevating to, once you get to a higher level, that you end up being in a political sphere and can have armies and stuff moving around. Is that kind of what you're doing with this campaign?
That campaign had a focus on politics and warfare for sure, but with the limitations of the sort of party kind of system that is kind of the expectation for Dungeons and Dragons, we kind of shifted that a little bit into focusing more of, to speak plainly, our party sort of being like special forces. And so we ended up with those sort of like singular, like, deep strike kind of missions, and like, hey, we need you to go solve this particular problem. We need your special skills. You're the A team. Go in there. We're literally the A team, because we named ourselves the Apex Alliance. So like, so we were kind of focused more in that realm, as opposed to truly something like slamming armies against one another and being like commanders and that sort of deal. We had a couple city sieges that we were a part of and we were participating in, and seeing those large swaths of armies and all that kind of stuff, battling it out. And then of course, us being the A team had specific objectives: go break the siege at this gate, go do this and that sort of thing, putting us where we needed to go. And a lot of that came to us making those decisions after we got to like a certain rank, in terms of, hey, they beat a dragon. They're kind of a big deal now. Maybe we should give them more autonomy. And so we got to that point and we started doing things on our own. Our group just finished up in that game's version of the Feywild, and has just returned back to the material plane. Having beaten Archfiend that was in there, causing a whole host of problems, working as part of a deal with the core faction that our nation is opposed against. So now the players have to figure out, the enemy faction is making deals with Archfiends. How are we going to deal with that? How are we going to deal with all of this power that she has, and the fact that her country is so mountainous and impossible to properly invade? It makes for a lot of good like problem solving situations without having to get into like, hey, I like RTSs and like Brendan likes RTSs, but maybe not everybody else at the table likes real-time strategy games and is trying to play, Command and Conquer right now. They want to play D&D. How do we facilitate that? And this is a good way to do that. But with some upcoming projects that are taking place for myself, Kingdoms of the South has moved to be sort of a private game now. It's transitioned off of Lionhead Gaming as a show, and it's just something that our group is doing on the side.
Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, you've got so many that are in full view that it totally makes sense to have one or two that are, for yourself, for being able to play and have fun.
So how does that change how you guys play? Like when you're doing these games for yourself versus games that you're streaming, did it affect the dynamics in the group at all, or how you guys play?
That's a good point. So this kind of gets back to like the origin story a little bit. So 4 odd years ago, when I brought this, hey, can I stream our game kind of deal to the table?
Right.
It was, and very much still is, like, cool. We like you. We're fine with this. We can do this. And we are your friends. But this is your project. And it is. It's mine and my wife's project of like what we're doing with Lionhead Gaming. And our friends are more than happy to be a part of it and contribute their time and energy and play their characters the way they would want to play their characters. And that is something that we have been, I guess, stringent or very strict about, is not treating our campaigns so much like a show as to be a burden on our friends, right? Because our group is one that has formed out of friendship and playing these games together, not one that is a collection of different streamers who've come together to put on a production per se. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course, but that's a core difference. My friends want to play D&D. I want to stream D&D. These things can align. They just require effective communication, good relationships, and sacrifices in some cases. But you also get boons and benefits in that we're extremely familiar with each other. We know what each other likes. We know how to play off of each other already. And that still creates, in my opinion, some very entertaining and fun content while also being some great D&D.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for the fact that you were friends before and you're used to playing with each other. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic that you're talking about. They want to play, you want to stream. So
how do we make that work? And we figured it out.
It feels very similar. I mean, obviously it's very different, but it feels, I see threads of a similarity in a theater company that was my friends. We all got together and we started a theater company, but then business and things, warped and changed all of our relationships, some for the better and some for the worse. And I think if we went into it with the maturity that you seem to have gone into it with your group of friends, things might have been a little bit differently. And so it's good to have that baseline of being like, this is one person's or one kind of group's project and we're just amplifying it. And then if it ever gets to infect the actual relationships, then you're like, hey, that's maybe a time to pull back a little bit. And that's smart.
Yeah. It's all about, for me, it's all about managing expectations. It's all about presenting, here's what I would like to do. And if you guys want to be a part of that and want to do that, that's fine. And if not, I know the reasons for that, and maintaining that open path of communication, not making anyone feel like they can't talk to me about anything. Like these, just fostering these healthy relationships is integral to making sure that works. And that's not to say, though, I am not open in the future of Lionhead Gaming to putting on what would be considered a more traditional show where I reach out to people in the community who are streamers and want to be, prolific and make the show with them. It's something that I have on the back burner of things I would like to do, because those expectations that I manage with my core group will reach their limit. And when they reach their limit, it is for the health of all the relationships that I make that transition at some point and still play with them, of course. But, all great things come to an end where they should. And, I'm happy about that, honestly. That's why I'm super excited to run Heroes of Thylea, so I can deliver a 3-20 game for my friends before perhaps my next DM project being something that's a streamer-focused thing.
That makes sense. And you mentioned using Roll20 in a virtual space for a lot of these things. I struggled with that platform. I'm not gonna lie; it's very hard for me to jump in and do it. So I've kind of done a hybrid theater of the mind, as well as using miniatures on the table behind me and cameras to kind of get that feel, especially during this pandemic. So talk a little bit about things you've done playing online and how that all works for Lionhead Gaming.
Yeah, we've been using Roll20 since the beginning. We're all virtual. We're all pretty separated all over the country. And so it was kind of business as usual when things, started to lock down in terms of like not being able to see each other and things like that, because that's what we're already doing. We play for the most part with cameras on so we can see each other's faces and still sort of kind of play off some body language, the things that you can see in the camera anyway. I won't say it's the same as playing at the table, even though it's been a long time since I've done that. But it definitely helps bridge the gap to have that be a component. So I'm thankful that Roll20 has that. I've also branched out and started using a wonderful program called Foundry Virtual Tabletop that is excellent, absolutely excellent, because it lets me do things that would be, I think, pretty big DIY projects if I was running a game at home. like on a normal table, where like I recently put together, minor spoilers here for Heroes of Thylea, but I recently put together a virtual fireworks show that I worked on for like a month, and I turned that into a video, and I'll be able to show that virtually through the tabletop platform because it supports like having video maps and animated backgrounds and like all of these advanced technologies that can make for I think a much more engaging and evocative play experience that then I can also capture and share to my viewers, where they'll also be able to see the cool, awesome fireworks show that I worked on for the game. It's a lot of fun, and you get some fun automation tools and things like that. The connection to like sound effects and production value is really nice, because I don't have a producer like you guys have for your wonderful live shows that, when someone casts a spell, somebody in the back room can play a sound clip connected to the spell and you'll have cool effects and everyone can go ooh and ah. I don't have that, but what I do have is a very specific set of skills that I can use to connect sound effects to your virtual character sheet. So when you click Fireball, not only does a cool animated fireball appear on the minimap and you can see the effect, but there's also a sound effect to go with it. And, it's bombastic. It's cool. I love doing it, and it makes a really fun time, I think.
That is awesome. I feel like that's also like the right amount of like immersion that I would need. Like I don't need like super fancy effects, but like to hear the fireball go off, to see it, what happens when it explodes, perfect. But I need to go back to this fireworks show because did you created your own fireworks show for something that was happening in your game?
Yeah, so Heroes of Thylea, right, is my Greek mythos game that I'm running, right? And being a mythical game, the pantheons for that game walk the material plane, right? And so my group is being shadowed and having their Odyssey recorded by the goddess of music, Kyra. And so they just recently saved, the closest analog would be like sort of Athens, the city of Mitros, from a perpetual hurricane that had been locked in place by the Titan of Storms against the city because, well, war is coming. And so they put a stop to that, saving the city from basically being washed into the sea eventually. And that's a big deal. It's a big deal in the setting. And so the goddess of music is going to use some of her divine power to showcase this celebration. She is, the embodiment of music in all of its forms, whether it be the music of battle or music itself, or even explosions and colorful colors in the sky. But there are some great software out there that you can use to make virtual fireworks shows. And I just so happened to stumble across that. And then I looked at that software and I decided, do I want to find artwork that happens to have a couple firework explosions and a cool city and use this as a backdrop for the celebration scene? Or do I want to spend hours and hours and hours and hours painstakingly timing a fireworks show in a virtual program to a kick-ass song from Wonder Woman?
I'm going to go, I think it was B. I think B is what you ended up on.
It in fact was. So
see, this is what I mean about like playing with other, like when you're a dungeon master in a play, but you're playing, can you turn off the dungeon master part of your brain? I would be terrified to DM a game for you because I feel like you'd be sitting there going, oh, really? Like, you're just going to tell me there's fireworks? We're not actually going to see the fireworks?
Look, I am.
Then you start getting like those flash bombs, and I'm seeing like Job from Arrested Development, like doing like amazing effects and fireballs for the camera. It's like, here's a dead pigeon.
So you're just gonna say you cast burning hands? I'm not gonna like
actually
see
burn your
on
hands.
Fire. You're not gonna light your hands on fire.
I am definitely, as much effort and love and care as I like to put into these, special effects, to put them in a broad category, nothing beats imagination. Nothing beats the things you can see in your mind as the DM. Just spend some time on just a description, maybe if they want to, a sound effect of fireworks, but you don't have to have that. We know what fireworks sound like. You can describe the scene. You can build a celebration purely based on what it is the characters spend time doing, and have that be extremely memorable, compared to burning, the midnight oil to make a fireworks show. I did it because I wanted to flex on my players, but that's that's just me. That's I'm a lion. I'm a proud person.
You remind me so much of that. There was a program in like the 80s for a Commodore 64 that had like a thing where you could program out a fireworks display. I remember as a kid just being, my older brother had, the first versions of these personal computers. And I remembered how fascinating and fun that was as like a little, 8 or 9 year old me doing it on with, the most basic of graphics. So I imagine that there's whatever program you ended up using now, it's super robust. And I bet it looked really great. Because those effects are all over After Effects as far as using those. Yeah. Those big huge things. So what was the software that you used?
Fireworks Sim, or FW Sim, is a all-in-one sort of program. And I'm not going to claim to be a master like After Effects or anything like that. I didn't play around with that. I just thought, this seems cool. Let me try out the trial, and it was timed, and I was like, oh crap, I only have an hour. Well, let me see what I can do in an hour. Okay, I really like this. I'm going to buy this now, and I'm going to use it. And having spent a while on it and made this one project, I looked at this and I've decided, all right, I'm never doing this again, but this was a lot of fun.
And you were able to export it out as like a movie or something like that, and then play that.
Exactly. And then I uploaded the movie to I host my game on the Forge, which is a website for hosting Foundry games, and I uploaded it on there. And because Foundry is so great, it plays just plays like a movie, just plays right there. So I'll be able to load them into the map so they can see it, and hopefully they'll like it.
They haven't even seen it yet?
No, spoilers. I know they're totally going to listen to this after the fact, but they already know, because I was talking about it last night with them on Discord. Oh my God, I'm never doing this again. But I just finished something. It's going to be awesome. Hopefully you guys like it. Even if you don't, oh well.
That's so cool. Dungeons and Dragons, we've talked about a couple of ways how it pulls in, especially for Dungeon Masters, all of these different disciplines, and we've talked about music and performance and artwork and all these things, but I don't think we've ever talked about how fireworks should be a part of your games.
It's like some people really like painting minis, right, and like putting together like Dwarven Forge and stuff like that, and that's not really for me per se. Like, even if I was playing physically, I don't think I'd be super into painting minis, but there are certain avenues for creativity that I really like, and this just happened to be one of them. It sort of tapped into an old thing I used to do as a kid, which was make like animated music videos, like on easy to use video editing software where you just take clips of stuff and time it to music. It was basically the same thing, and I was like, oh, this is fun. This takes me back to my childhood a little bit. I'm not going to do it again because I know why I stopped doing this, but this was a cute little experiment.
Well, I dig it.
I'm sure they'll love it.
I hope so.
Yeah, especially when they hear how much work you put into it.
Hours.
They know what's good for them. So how much of what you run either on your stream or for yourself, how much is like just complete homebrew versus published adventures, or what you find in supplements, or is it mostly just your own creations?
So it's an interesting question. So like Song of Rapture, right, is not a game. It's a game that I play in, right? It's not the one I run, but it's completely homebrew, right? It's completely Omen's baby that he has, molded into this outstanding game. And Heroes of Thalia, oddly enough, is actually, it's my interpretation and like revisions to a published adventure, a homebrew, like not homebrew, but a third-party adventure made by Arcanum Worlds, who like has some old BioWare authors. They did a big Kickstarter a while back called Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, and like that adventure is magnific. It's outstanding, and it's a pre-made adventure. But I took that pre-made, and I think like any good pre-made adventure, I went through it and I looked for what I thought would be not fun and made it fun. I went through and looked for the different sort of problem and pinch points that I think my group, having played with them for so long and getting to know their play styles and what it is they like, what it is they don't like, and tailoring and changing that adventure, not only for them, but also for me. There's just stuff in there that I wasn't a big fan of that I was like, that's cool, but nah, I'm going to do this my way. And so like, that's kind of my thought process and like way of looking at pre-mades. Like even some of the great stuff that like WotC's put out, like Storm King's Thunder is an adventure I ran, Lost Mines of Phandelver, of course. I think pre-mades are an excellent product. And I think they are one of the best tools for any DM who's really like learning and getting a feel for a system and also for DMing, because it gives you answers, but it's also going to give you problems. It's going to give you things that you're not going to like, that you're going to need to figure out answers for. And that will get you thinking in the future when you're doing your own thing of like, cool, the players just did this crazy thing I wasn't expecting. What am I going to do about it? I need to use that problem solving part of my brain now and figure it out. And I think I come naturally to that just because I like puzzles and things like that. So it just goes together like puzzle pieces. So I really enjoy it. Most of our other games though have been homebrew. Like The Expanse was completely homebrew. Kingdoms of the South was like 95% homebrew, took place on the Sword Coast, but it was completely a homebrew kind of thing. So that's I'm the one DM that's like, pre-mates have their merit.
Well, and it sounds like you pulled a lot of stuff from the Theros source book too for Thalia, right? Yeah,
pulling from your guys' great. Oh my God, I love Theros so much. I loved it in Magic the Gathering. Like when you guys made the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, another plane that I really, really loved, my very first thought was, God, I really hope they make Theros. I love Theros so much.
Oh, really?
I hope they make a Theros. But yes, I talked about that on Reddit endlessly when they put out Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, and everyone's like, what Magic the Gathering in my D&D, but I want, setting book from 20 years ago remade. I'm like, I mean, that's fine, but also new things are cool too. I wanted Theros, I want Innistrad, but that's neither here nor there unless you could pass that along to somebody.
Sending note now.
But yeah, Theros is an invaluable resource. Not only because like there's like some great monsters that are very Greek inspired, obviously, different takes on the Hydras, Polychronos being in there is going to be a fun time when my players are high enough level to maybe take on the World Eater. And using those ideas and like the ideas of piety and having the gods really have a presence in the world and what that looks like and how that can change things. It's an invaluable resource to sort of pick and choose from and take bits from. I haven't just full on put Theros into my game of like, hey, go to darn, I'm blanking on something at the moment. Go meet
like
actual, like go to the cities and things like that. I haven't gone that far, but I am taking everything that I want to integrate and bringing it all together.
That's perfect, because that was one of the selling points that I think when we were talking about it so much here on this podcast and throughout was just that you can run things whole cloth in Theros using all of these things, but me especially, loved the idea of just having tools for dungeon masters to run more classical campaigns that have that kind of myth around them. And it sounds like you took that and ran with it exactly the way it was intended, to have inspiration and jumping off points, and maybe I can use this monster, or I can use this dungeon, or I can use this polis and deity system, but I can also infuse your own creativity and do your version of our version of Greek myths.
Yeah, exactly. It's all a purebred dog has its issues because it has so little diversity in it. Bringing these things together, mixing everything together, bringing from other systems, other adventures, blending things together smartly can make for a really, really great finished product, right? A combination of spices and sauces and different ingredients make for a great dish, as opposed to just playing it right down Main Street. I think I think it's just not necessarily worse. I think it's just less fun as a DM.
Yeah.
Like, I think just being that adherent can be like more stress than it's worth.
I love how you wove 3 metaphors together there, and I was following along the entire time. I'm like, yep.
Like a true dungeon master.
Like a good dungeon master would, right? No, that's exactly. And I love the point about diversity too, as well, because there is, something about having so many people from so many different backgrounds entering the D&D community and contributing to the ideas and adding different flavors and spice to the menu that is all of the Dungeons and Dragons community, if I'm going to be able to mix some metaphors in here.
You got it. You nailed it.
And it's getting better and better, right? It's getting so much so that that's why we love talking to so many creators, because everybody brings their own special flavor to their game and to their characters.
Yeah, everyone has their own unique backgrounds, their own histories, their own things that they love and are passionate about that they can bring to the table to make for a better imagination time experience. I think
an imagination time.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to make sure that we get in a question that we got on Twitter for you from Fableforge RPG. They asked, what's the hardest thing that you've struggled with becoming a D&D content creator? It's a good question.
It is.
We should have sent it to you in advance.
I'd say the hardest thing I've struggled with as a D&D content creator. There is, and this is kind of weird because it's kind of related to just sort of content creation in general, because I think a lot of the aspects of like D&D and like TTRPGs in general, I haven't really had super big issues with, right? In terms of content creation, maybe the length of sessions might be problematic for content creation. People love things that are easily digestible. And sometimes it can be a big ask to have somebody sit down and watch and listen to you and your friends for 4 hours. But at the same time, with what it is I'm currently doing, my group wants to play for 4 hours. So we're making 4-hour sessions. That's just the way it is. I think just being cognizant of the fact that other people's success is not your failure, and making sure to support and love the other content creators around you can be something that I think requires a steady application of fuel to that fire. You need to be aware of it and keep, any feelings of jealousy or envy at bay, because I think they're natural human emotions to feel. I think they are honestly, in a way, healthy if you can utilize them effectively and keep them from, being a part of you. And I feel like that's probably one of the things that I have not necessarily struggled with, but it's just something that since I've been doing this now for 4 years, I have just seen over and over again and just had to sort of find my center and keep moving forward with what it is I want to do, and make adjustments here and there, be aware of what people are doing and the content that they're creating, and find my own space. And doing that while maintaining a sense of like happiness and joy in what I'm creating and joy in what other people are creating is something that requires constant energy. It's something you always be putting energy towards to make sure that you can be happy for other people. And I think that will make you happier as well. And it's something that I have felt has been a difficult ask in content creation, as opposed to like, just doing something more traditional with my time.
It's a good answer. Yeah.
It's a really good answer. And yeah, really true across, I think, lots of different platforms and areas, and like in general. I mean, but it is, I can see, it's one of the things that surprised me but then didn't is that because there are so many people, you know, who are talking about D&D and streaming D&D and playing D&D, and it's amazing to see this. But I always wonder, like, why do they all love each other so much? And then like seeing them, like seeing these groups come together in person and they're just like, oh, I love you, you're my favorite, or like guesting on each other's streams. Yep. And you're exactly right. Like you have to, there is like just a genuine enthusiasm for what other people in the community are doing and what we're all seeing. And we want to see this community grow. And they're all just very welcoming, wonderful, generous people, which is, you know, kind of also like hearing you talk is kind of like describing a D&D party. You have to be okay with other people's successes. Like sometimes you don't get you miss. You're like, you fail at your attempt, but then your party member comes in and, you know, gets the final kill or whatever, or, you know, solves the puzzle or can convince the innkeeper to let you pass. Like you just have to be okay with it. It's a group effort.
Together, each achieves more.
Yes. Yeah. And I know there's a metaphor, and that was also, I don't remember what it is. If we want to mix more metaphors, there's a ton of them here. Like jump in, guys. Jump in. What's the one about like boats all rising? Like,
rising tide lifts all boats.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the adage.
100%. Yeah. And see, that was the adage that stuck in my mind because we started Song of Rapture. That game started on Fridays, and for personal reasons, the DM needed to move that game to Thursdays. And we all know who sits on Thursday. We all know the big fish in the room. And that can be, if you let it, a disheartening moment as a content creator, because now you think to yourself, I will be swimming in the shadow of that massive Goliath. And instead, remember that so many people are coming to see that Goliath that they might be there early. And they stream at Pacific time. You stream at Eastern. You'll be on before them. Maybe they'll pop in and take a look at you for a little while before they go and enjoy their Goliath for some time. And that has happened. That has happened time and time and time again, especially with like a lot of cross promotion where people will come see us. And I have been reached out to afterwards, after that show, for things like this, for appearing on other shows, for doing guest stars, because you get more eyes on you. Yes, they're there to see the Goliath in the end, but they also look at you. And find that glimmer of hope in what can be a more dramatic dark than you really think it is. It's not the end. It is only the beginning. You've got this. You can do this.
One thing that you said, I just want to highlight because it's something that just really resonated for me, where that jealousy or that envy or you know, seeing the Goliath in the room can be disheartening, and it can be a blocker. And I think what you're saying here is like use that not necessarily to stop you from creating, but to get you to create, you know, more or differently or in your own voice. And that's really important just for any content creator, whether they be, you know, streaming D&D or writing novels or making movies. It's like you can't just take someone's success and be like, well, I'll never do that good, and so it's better for me not even to try. And then you're like, well, no,
doing it and they do it better.
It's always better to do something. So use that. Hopefully, those, you know, what we might be able to characterize as negative feelings of jealousy and envy, but use those to fuel more positive creativity, and that's gonna end up being a healthier person and a healthier creator going forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Good advice.
All right, well, you have a lot of wisdom, Jordan.
Oh, geez.
Maybe you've earned it over time. You've taken that, you know, +2 to wisdom over the last 4 years to get up that high.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on and talking through. I love all, even just hearing the little snippets of plots and things that you've got going on in each one of these games. Yeah. They're really interesting. Yeah. I want to know more about them and play more of them. And hopefully people who are listening can jump into any of them. What would be the best way to find out about your schedule or when things are going to be popping off?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Of course, when it comes to live streaming, following me on Twitch is definitely the best way to get the notifications for when we're going live. Twitch.tv/Lionhead Gaming. We go live with Song of Rapture on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And we are coming back the 31st for our 31st episode, season 2 of Heroes of Thylea, that crazy Greek stuff I was talking about before, at 5 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. So I'm super excited to get back into the saddle for DMing that. You can also, of course, follow me on Twitter at Lionhead _gaming. Somebody took the one that doesn't have a space. You can use the underscore to find me and follow me on there, where I'll tweet both my opinions on various things, whether it be D&D, politics, what have you, as an unfiltered look at who I am as a person, and also get the latest news and updates for the stream, whether or not we need to cancel or shift days, things like that. And you can, of course, join our wonderful Discord, where we talk about D&D all the time, discuss rules, hash out the latest UA. People are talking about making scarecrow characters with the new UA you guys put out, where you can be reborn as, crazy little constructs and stuff like that, and undead and all that good stuff. So we talk about things like that, talk about video games, all the classic fun Discord stuff, share memes relevant to our game and other games. And yeah, it's a fun time, fun community. So come on down, join the pride, and follow us at Lionhead Gaming.
Join the pride. I love that. I get it. I see what you did there.
Everywhere the light touches is yours, Jordan.
I appreciate it so much. If I would use my normal sign off, it'd be, may your dice roll 20s and you always make your saves.
Appreciate that. I love it.
Appreciate that very much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan.